everybody, it's Molly Be Good. I want to introduce you to the mirror reflection technique for tower building that I came up with. Unless, of course, somebody else has already come up with it and I just don't know about it. In that case, please leave me a name in the comments, the name of the technique and the name of the person who came up with it, and I'll be glad to give them credit. So, as a mini tutorial for tower building, really you build square towers or rectangular towers based on 4 different building levels. The first one, you just build vertical all your dominoes. The second one, I call it the around horizontal building level. The third one is around vertical, and then the fourth one is all horizontal again. And when you put that into practice, you see here the first 4 levels. That's exactly what I did. And then you end up with the whites going horizontal. In the mirror reflection technique, you then don't start over with level 1 as you would in the normal technique. So you don't start off again after that with the emerald green ones going vertical. Instead, you imagine that you are actually flipping this over as if you were maybe folding a piece of paper, where then everything would match its parallel down here. So instead of continuing to build with vertical green here, you go back to the yellow ones just like you were doing before the white ones. And you build them in the same way as you had them before, which means you are going back to building around and vertical, and then around horizontal, and then vertical as your last level in this set of 7 levels, which might seem a little odd if you're used to having the horizontal ones being the last one in a set, but that's why it's the reflection technique. It's different. So for those of you who like to print things, here is just a table where I wrote down how you would build a tower in the normal method, following the normal method, and how you would build it following the reflection method. Now, of course, it's possible that sometimes you're not fully paying attention. Maybe you're listening to music and you get confused. You're thinking, wait a moment, what am I supposed to be building? So the time I found that happening to me most was when I happened to be at white, and white was horizontal, because horizontal is the 4th level usually, and white is the 4th color. And so I always wanted to go back to building emerald green and vertical just because I'm so used to it. But if you do that, you will no longer be building in the mirror reflection technique. So maybe then you remember, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be doing yellow after white, because yellow is just sort of around them, and you built that one vertical because you're so used to it. But again, then you just won't be building in this technique. Instead, just remember, you have to go back to exactly the level before, and then the one before that, and the one before that. And when it's finished, it looks something like that. You actually have the 7 levels down here until there, and then you have another 7 levels also starting here up here. So actually it's flipped in this case, or reflected in 3 different places: at the white one, at the emerald green one, and at the white one again. For those who like to print things, here is a list. You can just, or a table, you can just print it out and try to build this with your own colors. Here you see the same technique used, but with 4 colors that are similar to each other, just 4 shades of green. Before, I used very different colors on purpose so you could follow it a little bit more easily. I find this very attractive. The human eye is attracted to symmetry. And so in this reflection method, you actually see a lot more of the flat or broad sides of the dominoes and a lot fewer of the short ends here. And so when you use 4 similar colors like here, you can really sort of see the pattern in building this reflection. So to show you again, you have 7 levels down here, right? And then you have that whole set again, 1, 2, 3 more times, but don't calculate 4 times 7 because this one is counted double, as is this one, and so on. So what actually happens is that you are building reflections, and so you come up with an uneven number of total levels when you use these 4 colors, or also when you use 3 colors, as we'll see in just a moment. So when you calculate how many dominoes you need, just keep that in mind. Again, here I used lots of flipping, lots of reflection. I used it over here for the reflecting around the mint ones, but I also used it here to reflect around the emerald ones. So we have this set 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and then sort of half up here and half down there. This is actually the first tower I built with this technique, where I came up with it, you could say. And at first you might say, I can't really see the reflection. Where is it? There's just, I don't know, I can't really figure it out. Well, there are 2 reasons for that. The first one is that there's only one single reflection. Right here in the middle of the tower, 12 levels, and then you flip it right here, you reflect it right there, which means you don't build this level twice, but you just build 11 on top, which gives you 23 levels. So it's harder to see because you only have this one particular reflection, only one flip. But it's also a lot harder to see because I only have 3 colors. And if you remember, we have 4 basic building methods, and even if we go back and forth between them, we still have 4 levels of building, but now we only have 3 colors. So if you just count from the very bottom, where everything is still as you're used to, you have emerald green, green, and spring green, I think it's called. And then the 4th color is actually not a 4th color, but it is again emerald green. And so it's a lot harder for the eye to pick up on where things are, what level are you at, and so on, and to see the reflection when you only build with 3 colors, and of course when you only have one particular reflection in there. So you can play around with this as much as you want, of course, but keep in mind that usually every 4th level is a horizontal one, and I flip this not upside down, but onto the side. So this would really be the horizontal level. But when you are building with certain reflections, you might have a lot more levels in between. In this case, 7 levels between this horizontal one and this horizontal one. So the walls get a little bit wobbly maybe if you're not careful. Just keep that in mind. It's not actually a mistake. That's actually due to the flipping that you're doing with this technique. I don't know how high you want to go. It probably depends all on how many times you want to do a reflection and how many colors you're using. Just play around with it. Let me know. Here are the 3 towers I built, and from left to right I showed them to you, but actually from right to left is how I built them. As I was working my mind through this and playing around with it, preparing for this tutorial. Personally, as I said, I kind of like this one in the middle the best, but you can do your own designs. I'd love to hear from you and maybe see what you come up with. One other thing to remember or to know that I think is really nice about this technique is that you don't need the same number of dominoes in each color that you use. When you don't have a lot of dominoes, or maybe you don't have the same number from each color, then you can still build this tower and build it pretty high because you don't need the same number of dominoes for each one. So the white in this color, in this case, was the one that I used the fewest of, because this was always the one where the reflection happened. So instead of repeating that level twice, it's only there one time. So if you have a color where you don't have that many dominoes, well, you can still use it in a tower and have some fun with it. So just to sum it up, I call this the mirror reflection technique. for tower building. If somebody else invented it first, which is likely, then just write in the comments what it's called and who came up with it. And then just go and have some fun with it.